And joining us now is the former Defense Secretary under President Trump, Secretary Mark Esper. Thanks so much for being here tonight. I got to ask you, how does a 21-year-old National Guardsman get access to top secret classified documents? He looks like a kid.
It's a great question. It's the one all of us are asking right now, is how does a 21-year-old get access? And look, a problem the DOD has is there's over-distribution of this type of material. And while he may have had the clearances, that doesn't mean he needed to have access to the information. So this is one of the things that DOD needs to do, is tighten up who gets access to these documents.
But how would he get clearance? That's my question. He's 21 years old. He's a National Guardsman, airman. I just don't understand why he has top secret clearance.
What little reporting we know is that he worked, obviously, for this intelligence wing as a part of the Air Force, and that he was a technician on classified communications gear. When you're doing that type of work, you do need to have a security clearance, but that doesn't mean you should have access to secure classified information. And that's what needs to be closed up, because there was no need whatsoever for him to have access to finished products from the Joint Staff or from the CIA Operations Center. Absolutely no need whatsoever.
A lot of that intel came from secret sources, some of whom risked their lives to give intelligence to the United States. How much danger are those secret sources in now, given the publication of these documents?
Yeah, another great question. Some of the reports have said there has been no human intelligence released. I think we need to find out. That's one of the questions that I assume the investigators will have. But clearly, a lot of signals intelligence was revealed and exposed. And I think the immediate impact there is it will affect our access to the Russian military and intelligence networks and understanding what Moscow is trying to do. So, look, there are immediate real-world impacts here with both the war in Ukraine and with our allies around the globe.
When you were leading the Defense Department, how rigorous are the background checks for all the people who got top secret clearance? We know that there are 1 million Americans who have this clearance. When you were in charge, how rigorous were these background checks?
Well, I fall back more on my military experience growing up in the Army, if you will. And look, for a secret clearance, it's not that rigorous. But as you get access to top secret and top secret SCI information, it gets much more detailed. And look, you're reminded of that all the time. And so this notion that he didn't know he was a young man is mistaken. He understood the seriousness of the material and what was at stake here. So again, the question is, even though he had the clearances needed to work on the equipment, he shouldn't have had access to the information.
Unlike previous intelligence leaks, these top secret documents were remarkably current.
Yes.
One, in fact, showed that Ukraine would be running out of air defense weaponry on May 3rd, in a few weeks. How damaging to the effort in real time is it to have this information out there? And you just mentioned the signals intelligence. Is all that information we were getting out of Russia about when they were going to launch attacks going to suddenly stop because they figured out we were spying on their phone calls?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, we don't know the scope and scale of the release yet. So I think we need to understand exactly what he put out there. And then the second thing I want to know was, why did he do it? And was he working with somebody else? And I hope there was no foreign influence here. But look, on some of the releases, information about Ukrainian ammunition, that's damaging, but we can fix that by providing them more ammunition. The bigger harm is if we talked about Ukrainian operational plans, and even worse, as I mentioned earlier, that we had access to Russian intelligence and the military networks. They'll close that up pretty quickly if they're smart, and then we won't have that information available for our own security and the security of our allies.
The documents do seem to show, Mr. Secretary, a much grimmer assessment of the war in Ukraine than public comments from the Biden administration thus far. It's been a much more rosier, optimistic. I mean, some of it is well-founded. Ukraine has performed much better than anybody expected. But these documents show a great deal of concern. Is that something that we, the American public, should be concerned about? Our allies should be concerned about?
No, I don't think so. I mean, these are assessments. They tend to be conservative. I think, the estimates originally at the beginning of the war was that Kyiv might fall in a few days or a week, and they were proved wrong there because the Ukrainians showed us something we didn't anticipate, and that was great courage and skill and grit. And so, people who work in this world understand that. And so it's important, it's informative, but it's definitely not dispositive in terms of what will happen. But they present scenarios of what could happen and current assessments. And again, some of those things are fixable, such as providing Ukraine additional arms and assistance and so forth.
I was most intrigued by the Black Swan events that we see being debated. in these documents. What if Putin dies? What if Zelensky dies? What if Zelensky finds a missile that can hit Moscow? There are all sorts of black swan events that sort of throw the whole deck of cards up in the air. This is something the Defense Department and our intelligence analysts do all the time.
Yeah, it's important, and it's good that they do those things. It makes you think. I assume that the one black swan event about Ukraine possibly attacking Moscow is a reason why the White House has decided not to provide Ukraine with ATACMS long-range missiles. And, that's a legitimate concern. But I would argue there are other reasons to provide ATACMS. But understanding those types of scenarios is important as you think about your policy and then how you implement that policy when you're providing arms and ammunition and intelligence, for that matter.
Finally, members of Congress are calling now for an investigation into how this leak happened, how this 21-year-old airman had access to our top secrets, the damage that this may have done, the danger it might have put our own United States forces in. Do you support such an investigation?
Yeah, that's a important oversight role by Congress to get to the bottom of that. I'm sure Secretary Austin and Chairman Milley are doing the same right now. I think the most important thing is to get from him information about the scale and scope of the release of information he made and find out, was he working with anybody else? And then we can do the digging and the fixing. I mean, clearly at this point, we need to close the loop. We need to reduce the number of people who have access to this information, and then really work hard on insider threat technologies that can help us determine if somebody is accessing information when they shouldn't be.
Right. Folding up documents, putting them in their pocket, walking home and putting it on their coffee table and taking pictures.
Right.
That's simple. All right. Former Defense Secretary Mark Esper, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.